Next, I'd like you to welcome to the stage Mr. Celedonio von Wuthenau. He is the head of government relations for Latin America for Nokia. Please welcome Mr. Wuthenau.
Oops. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much to the organizers. And good morning to everyone. My name is Celedonio von Wuthenau. I'm based in Buenos Aires, working for Nokia, in charge of government relations for Latin America. And I mean, first of all, the presentation today in the first panel in the morning was very interesting because we could see different kind of visions. I mean, the European vision, the Asian vision, different countries' vision. In my case, my presentation is really focused on how we see this from the Latin American perspective. And in this case, in order to start, we have to talk about 5G. What is in fact 5G? And I could say all of you knows about that, but a summary will be all in one. We will have in 5G everything. And we will be able to do with 5G everything. So it's really a challenge in order to have the good network, the good technologies covering all our countries. And if I think in Latin America, our countries are huge. First of all, I mean, one of the main aspects of 5G is the extreme mobile broadband. I mean, what we have today as broadband is going to be like nothing compared with 5G. That is the first service that we can expect from 5G. But then we have other two components. First of all, the massive machine communications. Everything will be connected, or would say everything can be connected to the network. For this kind of services, we need some kind of requirements, and the network has to be prepared in order to give this kind of services to the people who are interested in having these services. And secondly, the critical machine communications. And that is really a huge challenge, because here what we need is almost nothing of latency in order to have the services we want to expect in this area. And this has to be given by the same network. So in this case, I would say we are going to have 5 things that we really need to think about in having 5G. First of all, reach. We have to connect everything, everywhere, anything. So the reach is key. Second element, mobility. Some of these assets connected are going to move. So we have to have really a very good network offering these kind of services. First, performance. Really, the network has to work very good in order to offer this kind of services. The other component, reliability. So it cannot stop. If we think in critical communications, we have to have 24 hours a network working very, very well. And finally, security. So that is very easy to understand. And we are going to have 2 kind of networks. The regular operators network, this is a chain or a framework, or also the network of the industry, the verticals, vertical markets, industry, utilities, whatever, but I mean, a special network that maybe these kind of factors will use in order to take advantage of 5G. And here, I would say, are the challenges, and I will move to this place. If this works. Hola, hola. Okay. Hola. Hello. Okay, thank you. From the Latin American perspective, but I could say that this is also very important for maybe all the regions. First of all, we have to have a 5G strategy. When I'm saying we, it's the government, it's the country, but also the operators. Because as we see, the challenges are huge. And within this strategy, the main component is spectrum. Without spectrum, there is no mobile networks. So we need to have spectrum. And we need to have spectrum in different bands, in low bands, mid bands, and high bands. In the case of Latin America and worldwide, I would say the low bands are going to be 600 and 700 megahertz. In the case of Latin America, 600 megahertz. And depending on the country, also we can expect 5G in 700. Then the mid bands, 3.5. But 3.5, all what we can have. It's not about 3.3 to 3.6 or 3.3 to 3.7. It should be 3.3 to 4.2.2. That is what we want to need. Of course, there are satellite services, and we have to find a way in which both services can be offered. But we have to think in big. The much amount of spectrum we can identify in this band in order to have 5G. And finally, high bands that in the case of Latin America is more thinking on 26, 28 gigahertz. Of course, there are higher bands, but really to start with 26, 28, it should work very well. Second, at national level, we have to give the operator the biggest amount of spectrum that they can have. In the case of 3.5, it should be at least 100 megahertz. Less than that, of course, the operators can offer a service, but not a good one. And in the case of 26, 28 gigahertz, what we expect is between 400 to 800 megahertz, or at least 1,000 megahertz per operators. Again, in order to have a good service, that is what we expect operators to have. Here is also very important to say something. All operators in a country have to have access to 5G spectrum. And all the operators have to have access to these different kind of spectrums. We cannot exclude an operator because of something. Because if we exclude them, their customers are not going to take advantage of 5G. So really, give all the spectrum the operators need and allow all the operators to participate. Price of spectrum. If we want to have 5G, and today in the morning, the president of Anatel said something that I could finish. Oh, very important, that 5G will reshape the society. 5G is very important for the digital transformation. So if we want to have this kind of transformation, we have to think about price. And price is or no price of the spectrum or a low price, and it's much more important to have obligations, to put obligations. But really to move operators to do this kind of different kind of deployments and not to give a high price. And also differentiate between low, mid, and high frequency. If we think that an operators in the 26, 28 gigahertz will have 400 to 800 megahertz, is much more than today they have in the low bands. I mean, in general, they are not going to be able to pay the same amount of money they paid for the 800 AWS whatever in 26, 28. Another key element is infrastructure. We have to help, operators to deploy the spectrum. Infrastructure sharing is a good way, but still we have the challenges, especially of municipalities. And 5G is not only wireless, it's also fiber optic. And the deployment of such a network will take a lot of work. And if we have the traditional behavior of municipalities, we are not going to have 5G. Availability and affordability is not only about the network, it's also about devices. Devices has to be affordable. And it's also about content, applications, local development for that. I mean, people using this for their own activities in their own city, land, or whatever. And finally, and the new actor, Industry 4.0. So it was a very nice slide in the morning about, we talk in mobile services about voice, data, video. And there was something new, industrial verticals, so verticals industries or vertical markets. And this is going to be the main user of 5G. So we have to think about this market. We have to think about these new actors, try to identify at national level maybe dedicated spectrum for these actors, and a special regulation that allows them to have access to that spectrum and use this spectrum for their own processes. Without this, it's going to be very difficult to develop this market. And that's all what I have to share. Thank you very much.